Prevent shaky bow with this one simple tip. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Megan. I'm a violinist and teacher. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years. I have my bachelor's and master's degrees in violin performance, and I'm Suzuki trained. If you're enjoying my videos, please just take a quick second to make sure you're subscribed. It's easy, it's free, it really helps me out. If you're interested in working with me, you can check the description for a private lesson application. I teach one-on-one online private lessons, as well as Learn Violin Online, or LVO for short. LVO is a comprehensive learning program for players of all ability levels from beginner to advanced that will help you achieve your violin goals in a super affordable and flexible way. Enrollment is opening up in just a few short months, so be sure to check it out and get on the wait list if you're interested. So shaky bow or bow bouncing is super annoying, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you some reasons why your shaky bow happens, some solutions to those reasons, to those problems, and then I'll be sharing the biggest tip, the thing that's helped me the most with my shaky bow at the end. So first, I want to reassure you that bow bounces or shaky bow is completely normal and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I know this is something that I really struggled with personally. I always felt like my bow bouncing or shaking a little bit was like a hugely negative sign. Like it was somehow like my fault and I was falling short in some way. And while yes, there are things that you can do to prevent it, your bow wants to bounce. Our modern violin bows were literally made to bounce. Because think about it this way, there's no way you would be able to do a spiccato, a sautille, a ricochet, whatever, if your bow didn't have the capability to bounce. So instead of thinking, oh, my bow's bouncing, I must be doing something wrong or I'm so terrible, maybe reframe the thought to, oh, my bow's bouncing. It's doing what it's supposed to. With that being said, I know there's a time and a place, right, for bow bouncing, and we definitely don't want it happening all the time. So the first reason that your bow could be bouncing has to do with retakes or lifting the bow off of the string. So if you're finding that after you do a retake and then you put your bow back on the string, your bow is bouncing a lot like this, there's two main things that you need to do or to remember. So first, you need to try to land in the lower part of the bow. The closer you are to the frog, so the closer you land to the frog, the least likely it is to bounce. So if you land in the middle, much more likely to bounce. But if you land at the frog, much less likely to bounce. The second thing is that you need to land your bow on the string before you play. We don't want any crash landings in violin or in life. But basically, instead of just playing as soon as your bow lands on the string, which is going to cause bounce, you set and then play. Set and then play. If you do that, your bow will not bounce. So if you're finding that your bow is bouncing or shaking around the middle of the bow, generally when you're just playing, right? Not after you've done a retake or a lift, then it's highly likely that you are squeezing too hard with your right hand. In other words, your right hand is too stiff. So when your right hand is very stiff, you are not absorbing the shock of the bow. You are not feeling how the bow comes into contact with the string, which makes it bounce a lot more. So if I'm very stiff, my bow is jiggling a lot in there. But if I'm more soft and flexible, no more bounces. Now I know a stiff bow hand is something that a lot of beginners struggle with, especially as adults, because we just have so much extra tension. But I'll leave a video linked with different bow exercises that you can incorporate into your practice if you find that you have a stiff bow hand and this is causing your bow to bounce. Another cause of unwanted bow bounces is the wrong tightness in your bow. So whenever you tighten your bow, you always want the stick to be slightly curving down. Mine's even a little too tight here. So you want a slight downward curve in the bow. If your bow stick is flat or worse, curving out the other way, curving upwards, one, it's not good for your bow hair. You're gonna have to get it rehaired because you're gonna stretch out the bow hair. But two, your bow is much more likely to bounce. Another reason that your bow might bounce is because you need to work on your bow control, which just means you need to refine the really tiny little muscles in your bow hand to again absorb the shock, absorb the weight of the bow. One of my favorite exercises that really helped me with my bow control and therefore greatly reduced the amount of bow bounces that I had or bow shakes is this. So basically you are going to put your metronome on at the slowest speed you can go, and you're just gonna move your bow as slow as possible. It's totally fine if you don't get a good sound. It's fine if there's not really much sound at all. But what you'll find probably when you do this exercise is that your hand is going to be bouncing a lot, your bow is going to be bouncing and shaking a lot, because you are working on those tiny little muscles, those really fine motor skills. That's okay. As you keep practicing the exercise over time, your bow control will become better, and those bow bounces will become much less, if non-existent, in your day-to-day playing. Another reason your bow might shake or bounce is because you're nervous, and this is definitely the culprit for me. So obviously, when we're nervous, we tense up, which, like we've already discussed, greatly increases the chances of our bow shaking. And what I find for me personally is that the shakiness happens mostly at the beginning, right? So if I can get over the first couple minutes on stage or a couple minutes under pressure, the bow bounces will generally subside. Also, a lot of time the bow shakies or bouncies are much worse under your ear than they are to the audience. I can't tell you how many times one of my students has been like, oh, my bow was shaking so much, and I was like, I could barely even hear it. So a lot of times it sounds much worse under your ear. But without further ado, this is the one thing that helped me so much, specifically when my bow was shaking when I was nervous, and that is to drastically tilt your bow hair, okay? So generally when we tilt our bow hair, we do so about that much, right? So we tilt it just slightly, so we still have a good amount of the hair on the string. It's just our stick is slightly tilted outwards. However, if your bow is really bouncing, if you're really nervous or you're feeling really, really stiff, tilt it more. Tilt it so that you're almost playing just on one hair, and that will drastically decrease your bow bounces. So now you know why your bow shakes and how to fix it. Do you struggle with shaky bow? Leave a comment and let me know. If you don't, I'm jealous. Thank you for watching, and please make sure you subscribe before you go.